he doesn't quite have the charisma, doesn't have quite the verbal skills as well. It may be because he's Swiss, I don't know.
The revolving business of professional wrestling can be a cold, lonely world, especially if you make it to WWE. All too often, history repeats itself. WWE brings in a world-class wrestler with the promise of superstardom, presents them with horrific creative plans that cause the audience to lose interest in them, and then blames them for failing to get over, releasing them back into the free agency vortex. Sometimes, however, WWE conducts this unthinkable treatment against bona fide wrestling legends, without so much as a thank you for their services. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 wrestlers' legacies WWE destroyed. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Number 10, Diamond Dallas Page. It was always going to be impossible for Diamond Dallas Page to get over in the WWF, not with the audience, but with the bosses. He wasn't exactly a spring chicken by the time he debuted, as he was 45 years old, which is practically 10 years out of date for WWF main eventers at the time, and he had carved his legacy almost entirely in WCW. In fact, Page, alongside Booker T, were the only major WCW stars Vince McMahon was able to secure for the invasion angle, with the NWO, Goldberg, and Sting not choosing to join at the time. That was his fault apparently, and he had to pay the price for it. What followed was a months-long storyline in which Page supposedly stalked The Undertaker's then-wife Sarah, who also scored a pinfall victory over the multi-time world champion. I mean, talk about a burial right there and then. This is a former multiple-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion being beaten by a non-wrestler. You can't get a big enough burial than that. As if that wasn't enough, Taker and Kane also pummeled DDP and Chris Kanyon in a SummerSlam steel cage match that left Page sidelined until October, and when he returned, it wasn't long until he picked up a significant neck injury, retiring him and ending his WWF career. Now, he was back wrestling by 2004, made amends with WWE, and started a life-saving yoga business. But Diamond Dallas Page's in-ring legacy was never the same after his catastrophic ordeal with WWF. Number 9. Taz. Now, Taz was never going to reach the same level of success that he had in ECW in the WWF. That we know, but how did Vince McMahon manage to fumble him that badly? Debuting at the 2000 Royal Rumble, he submitted the previously unbeaten Kurt Angle. He literally handed Vince the blueprints for Taz to become his next Golden Boy. A SmackDown match versus the then WWF champion Triple H followed soon after that. Taz lost obviously, but he looked like a megastar opposite the game, which was the problem. That match played out before 14,000 plus fans in Philadelphia, and they went mad for Taz. Taz went on record saying that he knew he was in trouble as he made his entrance. The chipper reaction was the direct cause of everything Taz had done outside of the WWF, and that is inexcusable in Vince McMahon's eyes. As a result, Taz spent the rest of his WWF career jobbing out to everyone, which infamously included lasting a measly 10 seconds in the 2001 Rumble. It was a monumental fall from grace from his debut, and it didn't get much better. By the time of the 2002 Royal Rumble, Taz had already taken his seat behind the announce desk. He was and still is a natural in the role, but it wasn't quite what any ECW enthusiast had in mind for him. Number 8. Lita. Although Lita is on good terms with WWE in 2026, that wasn't quite the case 2 decades ago. The publicity surrounding her and Edge's affair saw the scandal turn into a ratings-grabbing storyline that significantly affected her mental health. In that, Lita was cast as a homewrecker on account of her relationship at the time with Matt Hardy, but Edge, who was married, was seen as WWE's top shagger, could do no wrong. The double-standard booking reportedly left Lita ready to quit WWE just 1 month into the storyline before she was talked out of it. Vince McMahon subsequently treated Lita as though infidelity was the most horrific crime. She was forced into the infamous live sex celebration with Edge on Raw, which she actually refused to do before being threatened with termination. But the humiliation didn't stop there, as after she wrestled what was her retirement match at Survivor Series 2006, McMahon ordered Crime Time to auction off Lita's underwear and toys. Now, this period of WWE saw the company at its adolescent worst, but it still ranks as one of Vince McMahon's most tasteless treatments of a wrestler. Number 7. Shinsuke Nakamura. Like many before and after him, Shinsuke Nakamura came into WWE with an impressive track record elsewhere. Like many before and after him, he realized that it means nothing once you reach the top of the mountain. The King of Strong Style was an esteemed striker on home turf, whose 5 reigns with New Japan's IWGP Intercontinental Championship elevated it into an even playing field with the heavyweight title. In WWE though, this stiff in-ring style was watered down. His presentation was scaled back, and after a mediocre match at WrestleMania 34 against AJ Styles, WWE gave up on its latest Japanese pet project before he did even sniff the main event scene. 8 years after that disappointment, Nakamura remains chained to WWE, but not because they value his work. They understand he'd be a major get for AEW if he became a free agent. Frustratingly, he'll instead finish up his career working for WWE and likely become a trainer after that, having never achieved his full potential. Not putting the title on Nakamura in 2018 had to be WWE's biggest crimes at the time. Number 6. Gail Kim. Going into business for yourself is typically frowned upon in pro wrestling, but in doing so in 2011, Gail Kim managed to save her own career without hurting anyone else's. Kim eliminated herself from a battle royal on the August 1st Raw, which she claims was an order from John Laurinaitis, and quit the company on the spot. After that, she was off back to TNA, where she held the Knockouts World title several times. She was the first female Hall of Fame inductee and was generally treated a lot better. The story goes that WWE brought Gail back in 2009 following a groundbreaking first stint in TNA, and she developed several ideas for how to use her. Unsurprisingly, they didn't actually have anything for her, and she was predominantly used to put others over, her only storyline being a 2011 angle as Daniel Bryan's on-screen girlfriend. Kim discussed her empowering exit during a December 2011 interview with PowerSlam, during which she stated that she held no regrets over how she handled the situation. "I have no regrets. They didn't care. It didn't affect the outcome of the match. If it was going to affect the outcome of the match, I wouldn't have done it. It got to the point where it's just what I did, you know? Like I said, I don't have any regrets. You know why? It was about my life and happiness at that point, and having control of my life again. It felt good to know that I made that decision for myself. I wasn't going to be unhappy anymore. And most of all, I just wanted to wrestle again." Number 5. Sting. Sting finally arrived in WWE at the 2014 Survivor Series as the last in a long line of major WCW acts that had failed to acquire for 2001's Invasion angle, and it was clear from the start that the company held that against him. Paired with Triple H, Sting worked a dull feud with the game that resulted in a sluggish match at WrestleMania 31, though it was more of an angle than it was a match, with the interventions of the NWO and DX serving one purpose: to remind fans that WWE had won the Monday Night War 14 years earlier. The fact that Triple H won further highlighted Vince McMahon's inability to let go of the past. The only other thing Sting did was wrestle a sloppy match versus Seth Rollins at Night of Champions 2015 that left him with a serious neck injury. He was forced into medical retirement as a result and was the Hall of Fame headliner the following year. But that was about it. He quietly exited from his Legends contract in 2020, his WWE career having been a complete waste of time. Number 4. Kurt Angle. Killing two birds with one stone was a phrase Kurt Angle used to describe his retirement match. He lost to Baron Corbin at WrestleMania 35, but given that it was his 14th match on a 60-match card, and it also had to follow the euphoria of Kofi Kingston winning the WWE Championship, nobody was interested when the time came for Angle to hang up his singlet. WWE evidently didn't care either. Despite the obvious layup of Angle tussling with John Cena, Samoa Joe, or even Chad Gable, WWE of all people chose Baron Corbin, who they had on air blamed for WWE's failed ratings just 4 months earlier. It wasn't helped by the fact that Kurt and Baron had already feuded, with that rivalry coming to a decisive end. Vince McMahon's decision to suddenly rehash their beef was the latest in a series of questionable decisions that year, with the contest often topping the list of worst retirement matches ever. Speaking to Alex McCarthy of TalkSport regarding the match, Kurt despondently described it as filler. "They didn't know who to put me with. I was doing a program with Baron, even though we finished it because he beat me clean. They decided to do it again at WrestleMania. I think they killed two birds with one stone. They got my retirement match on WrestleMania, and they had a good filler in between two main event matches. I really believe my match was honestly a filler match." Having a filler match for one of the greatest stars in WWE history is absolutely criminal. Number 3. Jim Ross. Jim Ross is a better man than most, because in 2021 he claimed that he wasn't mad at Vince McMahon, despite McMahon having made a mockery out of him for his entire career. Examples of Vince's ritual bullying of the announcer date all the way back to 1994. That year, Ross was abruptly released from his WWF contract while recovering from his first bout of Bell's palsy. That later became a frequent point of McMahon's bullying, with one disparaging segment seeing Vince wear Ross's iconic cowboy hat while mocking his Bell's palsy facial paralysis. Somehow that escaped the writer's room at the time when WWE was preaching its anti-bullying Be a Star campaign. On lesser notes, JR was also drafted from Raw to SmackDown without being forewarned in 2008, while in 2013 he was reprimanded for his unprofessional conduct during the 2K14 panel, but Ric Flair, who behaved in a much worse capacity than Ross, was just let off. Contrary to popular belief, Jim Ross could still be as engaging as he had been during the Attitude Era, but WWE stopped giving him a platform. They used him just twice in 2013 and relegated him to NXT by the time he left the company that summer, leaving younger fans unaware of the impact his voice could have. Number 2. Mickie James. And nobody knows the exact process of what happens during a WWE release, apart from those directly involved. But you'd imagine that having your leftover belongings shipped back to you in a trash bag would never be part of the process. That's exactly what happened to Mickie James in 2021 though. A picture of her bag belongings quickly went viral, with several other release wrestlers chiming in to share their own experiences. The person responsible for the incident, Mark Carrano, was promptly fired, but the damage was already done and WWE's wrongdoings were exposed. Discussing the incident on a Grown-Ass Woman podcast, Mickie said that while she didn't explicitly blame anyone for the mistake, she felt as though the trash bag symbolized how she'd been treated historically by the company.
Like, I'm pissed on it, but I'm like angry in a different, like, I don't want to come across as just angry, because I'm not, it's just more of like, it is a direct reflection of everything that I've experienced, you know, and coming back. I was happy to take a back seat and take a trainer role or take something. All I asked for was like something that just kind of can curtsy out the door. It was never about, I want one last run, or I want to still be a wrestler for the next 5 years or anything. All I wanted was just a little respect. And then I wouldn't feel like this unfinished business. I felt that sometimes because I was asking for this one thing, it was going to come with a price kind of thing.
And number 1, Dean Ambrose. A rare occurrence happened in January 2019 as WWE announced ahead of time that Dean Ambrose would be leaving the company that April. What followed were 3 months of pure misery, which included the awkward mini-feud between Ambrose and Nia Jax, while his final televised moment was him getting annihilated by Bobby Lashley. In the months beforehand, however, came the infamous heel turn on the night that Roman Reigns revealed his leukemia had returned, which Ambrose poked fun at before getting injections into his bottom for some reason. Ambrose was always going to be ruined by working for WWE. He couldn't do any of the deathmatch wrestling that had made him famous. But even when he was brought to the main roster as part of the Shield, it was clear that he was the third most important member of a 3-man team in terms of who WWE wanted to get over. Ambrose eventually won the WWE Championship, but his reign was unremarkable compared to those of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. His departure would have happened even if All Elite Wrestling didn't exist. Speaking to ESPN shortly after his WWE exit, the Reed Chris and Jon Moxley pointedly stated that even if there was nothing other than WWE, he was still determined to leave. My leaving WWE exists outside of that. Whether AEW exists or not, I was still leaving WWE. It was good to know that the wrestling business was doing so well outside of WWE, but even if it wasn't, I still would have left. If there was no other promotions to work for in the world, I still would have left WWE. If there were no other wrestlers, I would have just started my own promotion, started my own training school, and trained my own opponents. I would have reseeded the wrestling business from scratch if I had to, but the timing of it is just so crazy. You'd have to wonder if Dean Ambrose would ever return to WWE again. But there you have it, folks. 10 wrestler legacies WWE destroyed. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.